Could you tell the story of finding your birth certificate?
Oh, God, yeah. Wow. I'd gotten home from school,
How old were you at that time?
11. I was 11. And Mom had kept in her closet like a Crown Royal bag that was full of coins, but she always put it in different places because when I was going, you had the concession stand at school. For a quarter, you could get a candy bar back then, or like 10 cents, you could get a Coke.
Just so people can put you in space. Where were you at the time?
In Louisiana, a little town, Start, Louisiana, where I grew up, a little farming community. It's just a caution light and a cotton gin. That's where I grew up. And so I was looking for the little bag, trying to find some quarters or something to go buy a candy bar at the store or something. And I found the bag, and there was a box right next to it. I opened the box, and right on top was my birth certificate. And I didn't think much of it, and I started looking at it, and I saw McGraw, where a line had been drawn through it. And right above it, written by hand in pencil, was Smith, which was my stepdad's name. And then it said Dad's occupation, professional baseball player. And of course, of being 11 years old and growing up, we were like low middle class and, didn't have any money. And seeing something like that, it was just so hard to register. It didn't seem real. And oddly enough, I had 3 baseball cards on my wall in my room. His was one of them because he was one of my favorite players.
Tug.
Yeah. So I instantly called my mom, and I could tell that it hit her like a ton of bricks. She was at work. And I'm like, Mom, what is this? My birth certificate? What does this mean? And then she was like, oh my God. That's all she said. And she said, I'll be right home. And then she came home, and we went for a ride, and she told me the whole story.
What was the story?
Her junior summer in high school. And her mom had just left her dad, my grandpa, and they were staying in a motel that had a pool with the outdoor, like a motor court motel. That my grandmother and my mom were staying there, but it just so happened that the minor league team, Jacksonville Suns, the minor league team for the Mets, all the ball players were staying in that hotel as well. So Tug and my mom met at the pool and sort of dated over the summer. And when he left, he got called up or whatever, and left, she found out she was pregnant. My mom was a dancer, and she had just gotten invited to try out for Where the Action Is by Dick Clark, which was like his first show, the precursor to American Bandstand, all that stuff. So my mom had just gotten a letter inviting her to audition for it. And she had just found out she was pregnant with me. And then I have her senior portrait that she took, that they always take at the beginning of the senior year. And she had just found out 2 days before the senior portrait that she was pregnant with me. And every time I look at that portrait, I can see it in her eyes. I can see that her whole future had just disappeared in front of her. And she told me the whole story and said that she hadn't talked to him since and hasn't heard from him. And I said, but I'd like to meet him, So she got in touch with his lawyer somehow, or his agent somehow. And he was still playing at the time. And they arranged somehow. Mom borrowed a car from her boss and some money from her boss. He said he would leave tickets for us and have lunch with us. And we drove there. He met us for lunch. We talked for a little while. And he just said, I'm not your dad. I don't think I'm your dad, but we can be friends, kind of deal. And went to the game. I had a Pete Rose magazine where Pete Rose was about to break the hitting record that I brought with me. And he took me in the clubhouse, and Pete Rose signed that. So I got to meet Pete Rose. Got to throw the ball a little bit with some of the guys for batting practice. And my mom had got me a McGraw shirt made and a Phillies hat and all that stuff. So she had me all decked out. We met, never saw him after the game or anything, never heard from him again. So, of course, I was obsessed, as an 11-year-old kid would be, about something like that.
Could I pause you for 1 second?
Yeah.
What were the emotions that you felt at the time? Was there anger? Was there confusion? Was there admiration? What was the mixture of emotions that you felt?
I think at the time, I don't think there was anger. I think there was some affirmation in it, because we grew up in a very dysfunctional life. The guy who I thought was my dad growing up was an alcoholic and very abusive. to my mom and to me. And then the second stepdad was worse than the first one. So we grew up in really scary, the commercial you see now when footsteps are coming home, kids are scared. That's the way our house was when you'd hear the truck drive up. So for me, there was an affirmation of why I felt like I didn't belong with that guy. So it wasn't a confusion. I don't think I was young enough to register confusion. I think I was certainly it was more about the excitement of finding out that your dad's a professional baseball player. It's certainly in the circumstances that I was growing up in. So for me, it was sort of a ray of light in a lot of ways. So the next year they were playing in Houston again, and I asked Mom if I could go see the game again. She got in touch with the agent again and said he would leave 2 tickets, but he's not going to see us. So he left 2 tickets, and then it was in Houston, which was the only time I'd seen him play. Cut to the first time I saw him play, he came in and gave up a grand slam. The first time I saw him play. But the bullpen is right by the stands. I mean, the stands are to that desk where the bullpen is.
10, 12 feet away.
Yeah, you're right there. He wouldn't see us before the game or anything. So he was warming up in the bullpen, and my mom says, why don't you go down and say hi to him? He's warming up in the bullpen. So I walked down to where he was warming up, and I was as close to me and you as you are to him, and he's warming up. Someone's yelling at him, Tug, it's Tim, Tug. And he wouldn't look at me. He wouldn't look at me or acknowledge me. And so I just sort of dropped it for that. Went back home. I didn't use McGraw, I used Smith. Just sort of forgot about it. Didn't forget about it, but only a handful of my friends even knew about it. I didn't tell very many people about it. Then I got embarrassed, I think, after that I was just like sort of thrown away.
What happened? What changed?
Well, when I was 18, graduating high school, we didn't have any money for college. I was counting on sports scholarships, and I had a few, but I was small. I graduated high school. I was 5'10", barely, and 140 pounds, and, getting football scholarships and basketball scholarships, thinking, this is probably going to work out when I get to the next level at my size. She was going to call about paying for college, see if he would pay for college. This is a long story. She's going to see if he'd pay for college. So
we got plenty of time.
I was staying out of it. I was too busy with my life. And then I remember the last high school football game. I'm getting ready. I'm down on the field, getting ready for the game to start. We'd already ran through the banner and done all that stuff. And somebody taps me on the shoulder. And it was my mom. I'm on the sidelines getting ready to go out and play. I'm like, Mom, what are you doing here? We're about to play a game. You can't be down here on the sidelines. She goes, well, I heard from Tug's lawyer today. And I said, okay, Mom, can we wait till after the game we get home to talk about this? So played the game, got home, and we talked a little bit about it. And then we talked about it the next morning. And the deal was they'd sent a contract. And they said that he would pay $300 a year towards my college, and that I would never be able to contact him again. And if I did, the money would anyway, $300 a year for college, and you can't contact me anymore. And that to me was enough to say, you know what, fine. My only request is that I don't even need the money. $300 a month's not going to do anything. I don't need the money. Don't need anything. My only request is that he has to meet with me one last time. And then if he wants me to sign a contract to leave him alone, I'll do whatever. And so we drove to Houston. He had retired at this point, and I just graduated high school, so I was as tall as him. And we walked into the hotel, and Mom said, well, there's Tug standing, checking in over there. And he had somebody with him who was his lawyer/agent. So I walked over to him and tapped him on the shoulder, and he turned around and looked at me and said, hi, Tug, I'm Tim, because he hadn't seen me since I was 11. And I introduced myself to the guy standing next to him, and the guy standing next to him turned completely white because I looked just like him. So he knew that the gig was up.
Yeah, the gig was up.
So we sort of spent the day together hanging out a little bit, and then we went to dinner that night, he, Mom, and I. And then there was a point during dinner, a small talk, where I asked Mom if she could leave us alone and let us talk for a minute. And of course, Mom didn't want to do that. And I assured her that I had this was fine. And as soon as she left, I just looked at Tug and says, look, I'll I'll sign your contract. I'll never talk to you again. I won't bother you. I just have one question for you. And I asked him, do you think you're my dad? And he says, yes, I believe I am. And he said, we'll tear the contract up. And then I didn't hear from him for a year after that. But after that, we ended up starting to see more of each other. And me going, while I was in college, I would drive up to Philly and visit, and got to know my little brother Mark and my little sister Carrie, which was great to come out of that. But this is what I'll get back to. At the end of the day, I get asked a lot, and you said it right. A lot of people now don't know the story. They knew it at the beginning of my career, but a lot of people that know my career now, that know who my dad was, they think that I grew up in that world, and I didn't. So I'm glad we're talking about this, because a lot of people can understand now that I didn't grow up in that world. But the long and short of it is, when people ask, how could you have anything to do with your dad? How could you have not hated him? How could you have just not turned your back on him? My answer always is, he gave me something that was so precious, and that was hope. Whether he meant to, and he didn't, or knew it, or any of those things, he gave me a reason to think that I can get out of the situation that I was in. And that if he can do that, then I have it in me to do something. And so, for that reason alone, I couldn't hate him.
Hope, man.
Yeah.
It is just it's a bedrock of everything else.
If everything else is gone, if you got hope, you still got a chance.